I'm just sort of spitballing here, but I'll try and find this because it's where is that? I posted it somewhere. I don't know if we'll be able to find it easily. HackMD. Oh no, it's called Chat World. Okay. So one of the other projects we kind of have on the plate, I'm part of this community called M3, and M3 is Metaverse Makers, and we do a lot of like nerdy 3D stuff, kind of like social web games, Metaverse. Um, and I think that Metaverse got really hyped and crypto became a thing, and it kind of made it not as cool. But we were like, nerds before it was cool or whatever. So we made this like with our last project, we had kind of a let's see, we made a white paper called Chat World, and in Chat World we talked about some ideas like this one, particularly called the Jedi Council. And the idea of the Jedi Council was that we could have like um, uh, sort of multi-agent discussions around different things that might be interesting to people. Like, oh, we could make a video of the council discussing the latest proposal for the DAO or whatever it is. And we're basically working on this, but it kind of got paused. So I talked to Jen, and he sort of reproposed it as like it would just be really cool if we could create something for communities, so that broadly, if people had proposals, they could put them in front of like kind of a digital twin of the actual community leaders, and they could like basically argue them and approve or whatever. And so that's kind of how we got into this idea of doing the multi-agent simulation stuff. It's like, okay, well, we actually have all these characters. Sorry, my screen's bad, but we have them in 3D, and they each have a voice that's like a real human. Like I actually gave them, a recording of my voice, and my voice is in there now, along with all the other M3 members. And they just like sit there and talk about, go back and forth and talk about it. But how to make them talk about it intelligently, and like which agent
Yeah.
takes the lead? Oh, I got this. That's a whole
No, that's a good use case though.
Yeah,
yeah.
well, the killer feature there is the biggest issue when you're running a lot of DAOs is participation. So like you don't get
Mm-hmm.
like people, nobody gives a fuck to vote on shit unless it's gonna make them money, and the people that are gonna make money from the proposal are probably the people that you don't want the only people participating in the vote. So it can be really handy if you have a AI robot that never gets bored and always gives a fuck that you can just delegate your votes to, and then you have a selection of different kind of archetypes of representatives that would vote in a particular way that you can delegate to.
Yeah. There's a lot there. Also, like the AIs can just sit there in Discord and collect all these people like who love to
Mm-hmm.
argue but hate to like actually write it into a proposal. And
Yeah.
kind of take all of the thoughts of all those people and the devs who just don't have time and sort of collect that into proper proposals. So that's kind of the next idea for the project, and that one's actually as long as everything lines up, potentially paid. So it would be more incentivized than this fun open source stuff. But also would be an open source kind of example of both this tech and also potentially the Upstreet tech. I don't know if I showed you guys this. My last company was called Upstreet.
Yeah,
Shit's
we
dope.
both took a look at the game. We kind of messed
Yeah,
around
yeah,
in it a bit.
it's fine. There's a lot of cool stuff that there's more unseen that can't be shown than like what's actually on the website. But basically, there's an SDK coming out to facilitate being able to make your own little levels and like put your agents in it and plug them into like our kind of agent package. So okay, zooming back, um,
Yeah.
AF bot. Pretty simply, all this stuff is if as long as it works, then what we really care about is like just how do we parse the input from the user, and that we might have to change some of the Discord interaction stuff, which would be in here. Like, okay, we're seeing okay, there's an interaction. Um, we want to see what kind of interaction type it is, right? Is it an application command? Is it a ping? Is it a message? If it's a message, we'll probably want to do something with that, parse it out. And that's probably the next thing to work on is like think about message parsing, getting the message out, seeing if it's the agent's name, if it's another bot, ignoring it, all the things we just talked about. Then the other part is going to be in the handle request. Okay, so we actually get the message in from Cloudflare, blah, blah, blah. Great. Now we have this request. And down we go down to the request. I should probably make sure this is right because I think that we probably just want this to be on message actually. Yeah.
And so with what you have right now, is it at a point where when you do get the bot set up in Discord, you add the hook in and everything, where you can actually type to it and then it'll come back locally and hit this handle request method? Is that
It seems
the point
like
where
I
that's
just
set up?
found a bug, so no.
Okay, okay.
But yes, but all we have to
In
do
theory.
is, in theory, yes, exactly. But what's going on is that this is probably going to have to be rewritten a bit to fit that Discord thing. So I kind of just jammed it in there, didn't think about this problem. But yes, in theory, this should. But however, let's just skip all that and say like what's actually going on here is we create a new runtime, and then we do some stuff just to make sure that the message has some things that we need. Like, oh, if there's no sender ID, then we probably want it to be the user ID. This is kind of just some shimming to make sure the types fit. And then we call on message. So really, if you the meat and potatoes here is we create a new runtime object, which has some things in it, and then we call on message. We pass that message. We pass the runtime. Okay, so then our on message function here parses out the stuff that we need from the message, does some validation, and then calls handle request on the runtime. And so this is actually what where all the stuff is happening, but this is all in Bgent, the other package. So pretty much this whole thing just wraps it and tries to drive it down to this one handle request. That returns a data response, and that data response returns. I might have to think about some things to re-architect for the to make sure that like new messages get posted. Like there might be some things that need some work, and I'm gonna work on that today. I don't think this stuff is gonna just work magically. I just kind of like pasted it in and jammed it together. But it's generally the right flow. You know, there might be some things now that we're not just like talking to Supabase, like we're trying to send it back to Discord. We might have to make sure there's some sort of hook for that. I'll think about that today. But generally, like if you run this locally, the bot will say hello and work, and you have like the thing. I think it'll just fall down right here. There are some things though that we can work on in parallel. Specifically, I think it would be good to start getting set up on two things. One is the Discord bot like tokens and stuff. And potentially if you wanted to create your own Cloudflare account as well, although I can share my API keys with you. I'm literally just doing it off like my like personal account until we kind of have something else. And then in addition to that, we also need to set up Supabase. So I will do a little bit of a walkthrough through Supabase just to kind
So
of
we have actually set up a Supabase database before.
Awesome.
So we're pretty familiar with that.
Amazing.
We've never set up the vector embedding before. We did read the documentation you sent over, so I mean, I'm sure we'd have a rough idea, but it's definitely something we could probably do.
Cool.
Yeah, I think I've ran them as part of something before, but yeah, like minimal experience, but some. Yeah.
I have a Cloud Supabase instance running, and this is kind of what's hard coded into the npx bgent package right now. It's not running like a local Supabase instance, but it totally could, and that would probably be a lot more like pure and what people wanted. So I have like, you can see I got a bunch of tables, things like accounts. I also have things like customers and stuff in here because I have like for CodeJourney I have subscriptions, but there should also just be like a pretty pure. I think I actually did reinitialize this one. Yes. So okay, this journey one. These are like the tables for this. Accounts, descriptions, goals, messages, participants. Participants are participants inside of rooms. Rooms are basically any room that tracks like messages to. So what I have to also figure out here as a challenge is like, how do we tie the idea of our room to a Discord channel, and say like this message came in from this Discord channel and therefore it needs to go out of that Discord channel, right? Because there's like there could be some different kinds of complications, and we're probably going to have to just make some real concessions and keep it really simple. But just like this is one of the things that's probably going to come up is like I don't know, we have to figure out how to engineer this. We use a thing called RLS a lot. If you look in policies, we have a lot of RLS policies. RLS is row level security. And so instead of having like a backend or having even a bunch of APIs in Cloudflare, what we do is we just have the front end kind of talk to the backend the database directly, and we can have it like subscribe to real-time messages. It can even do things like they can manipulate their account or create new messages and stuff. But because of RLS, they have fairly limited scope to what they can affect. Like I can only affect my own account, but I can select all accounts. Accounts don't include any authorization data or private data, so that's totally fine. I can like list all of the accounts that are in the thing. I can't list. I can list all descriptions, but I can only create ones for myself. I can only view messages where I'm one of the message participants, for example, and so on and so forth. And so this is kind of like fundamental to, it's kind of like a 2-tier architecture, right? Instead of like a 3-tier where you have like a front end, a back end, and a database, you're kind of just talking directly to your database. But as long as our security rules are set up and we're not doing things like row level security disabled here, then we're totally fine. And so this is a big to-do for me, is to fix these things as well.
Okay.
Another thing we can do with Supabase is something like storage, and we can I don't think we're doing it on here, but on the other one, we're storing like profile pictures and stuff for the app. And lastly, authentication. So our authentication providers are done here. And for doing the authentication with like Agent, what I'm doing is I have email set up like this, right? And so you log in with whatever your email address is, and it just like does that. And I can do you can either ignore the sending it to you, so you can just debug when there's no like checking the email, or you can like have the whole email checked. But all of the authentication for all this stuff is happening also in.
Oh shit! I didn't know Supabase handled auth stuff.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Oh god.
It's
so
really
easy.
good. Yeah.
That's pretty fucking sick, honestly.
Yeah. So that's kind of the other part of the stack. So what we have to do though is it would be great if we could get like maybe a Supabase local instance running just for the bot, so people could like trial it. It'd be nice if it was self-contained for one, and two, I have a SQL dump, and you can just like paste it. But I think we need to like make sure that works, or could automate it. It'd be cool if we could even just like have some way that you run some command and type in your stuff, and it like syncs the syncs a new cloud instance for you or something. I don't know what it is, but we want to kind of generally, I think, for the for both the A-frame bot as well as the general Agent package, just like if we're going to attach a Supabase, it needs to be super simple and just like self-contained and part of like kind of the open source offering, and not forcing people like into the cloud or making it really really easy, like one click, like Evercell.
Supabase they have a 1-click or 2-click local deploy. That's how I used it before.
Yeah, and so. Oh, Austin, were you gonna say something?
Me? No.
Oh, I saw you light up for a second. You're good.
Oh.
No. So what I was gonna say is, say we were to set up like a local Supabase instance for this. Is your idea, would we be doing the same like tables and kind of schema that you already have preset there, or what were you feeling for that?
Because those are actually like directly tied to the Agent package, right? It like depends on those pretty specifically. I can also do a bit of a walkthrough here if you guys have time, and because it might be good to see what's kind of going on in this package, if that seems useful. But also feel free to say no.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm just thinking like if we were, because I'm trying to think of like takeaways, right? So when we leave this call, like what is it that we can do, right? And so say that does end up being setting up maybe the local Supabase instance, if that would be helpful. like what are the types of tables that we need to set up? What certain parts that need to be set up? Do you want us to do the embedding vector stuff? Like where we can kind of go from here, and just kind
Exactly.
of help, right? How we can help you.
Exactly. So I think that the things that I should work on are probably the deeper, like fixing the core things in the agent that are gonna not vibe with the
Yeah.
set pattern. The things that I think would be easy to distribute to start would be yes, setting up the a new Supabase instance. I wrote this as example docs for setting up a new Supabase instance, but it might also require like maybe adding an npm command and thinking about that.
So I guess
In
you want us to kind of document our process of how we're doing this. That way, other people can do that too.
Yeah, it'd be nice if there was like a quick start and somebody who could just like go to the repo, follow the steps, and bam, it's all working.
The other
Okay.
thing that would be, or that I think would be, because I guess like uh, Moon wants to get this done. I want to build infrastructure that makes it easy to do stuff like this. So if there is a like thing where you're not sure about it, or like that question that you just asked, like, okay, how do we figure out what we need to do? If you have observations or thoughts or pain points with regard to that, definitely like keep track of that and feel free to shoot it over whenever. What I'm gonna probably try and do is have the bot help out, and then maybe set up like an Asana or some work streams channels or stuff like that. But yeah.
So I have a database dump somewhere of the actual DB dump. I thought I had committed it. If not, I will get it.
And when you say DB dump, is that like a thing of all the tables, all the data in the tables, etc.?
Exactly. Should be
Okay.
an entire dump that should allow you should basically be able to take this whole dump right here, but I don't think it's that one. It's one of these. And then I can take this and I can go into Supabase, their SQL editor. I can just paste it, and it should just create everything that I need with all of the rules and all of that.
Yeah, and I mean, if you send us that, like, I'm sure we could write some documentation as well on that as to how to do that, as we're going to kind of be going through and learning it ourselves for some of that, and the
Exactly.
setup of Supabase, and kind of doing that. And so, say that does work, we get the dump file working, it repopulates all of our local instance. From there, anything else beyond that?
Yes.
Okay.
So one of those setting up Supabase instance. The other thing is that we I think that working on the RAG and stuff would be interesting. Probably
Because that would be the embedding vectors, right?
yes.
So just doing a little bit of research maybe into that to see how that works.
Yes. So there's like this doesn't necessarily have to have anything to do with the agent or be in it, right? Because
Hmm.
there's like it's a kind of a separate process. So I imagine that we want to do is we want to go like analyze the A-frame docs, see if any of them have changed, and the first time they'll have all changed, right? For every document that is either new or has changed, we're gonna run through it and split it, and we're gonna have to split it across some different heuristics. Like maybe because they're markdown files, we split it by H1s, right? Or like like main headers, or we'll just see whatever we think kind of looks good. It makes sense for this. It's a pretty small document source, so it can be
Yeah.
pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
And
my
Yeah.
so
preferred
I guess
chunking
your
technique
kind
is
of idea is
sentence.
that say this A-frame place, or I guess the site, say they have like 30 PDF documents or some Word docs, right? You'd go through each of those and it auto split, say based on heading. We use that maybe this 2 to 5 paragraphs or whatever. That's going to be our string content or message that we use as the embedding vector that we're going to compare the prompt against and see how they correlate.
Exactly.
Okay.
So if we look in there, in the A-frame repo, and they have docs, and then we go into introduction, and pretty much all of their docs are in Markdown format, and so we just need like a
Okay, cool.
Markdown parser, right? Yeah, we say, okay, cool, point it to this repo, go through, pull every Markdown file, and then we know the URL where it came from, right, for everything. We know that okay,
Yep.
well, this has like this A-frame kind of title. This has like this is an H2. We could break it up by like H1s, H2s, H3s, and then vectorize each piece, store it, and then we basically end up with something like a bunch of the sort of document would look like we have like content, and then it would be like some huge piece of content. And then we would have something like source URL, right? Which would be like
Mhm.
/doc/original/doc.md. And then maybe, that would actually be the document inside of whatever our object is. And then that would probably be more like, content. This is probably what it looks like, right? It's like,
Would that source URL do a local source instance, or would that actually be the URL of the GitHub open source page that it's tied to?
it's kind of whatever's going to work for us. I think that, it could be github.com/aframe.
Yeah, because I figure like if a user's looking at this, right, they'd want to go to probably the GitHub page that's already open with this, so long as that URL doesn't change, right? I don't know how all of this we keep updated. If this is just like, because I'm trying to think of like, is this content? Do we pass this in to the database and then it just gets updated periodically, or is it like a dump file to where like I have 20 files, parse through this, then upload it to the database, or are we not even saving it in the database and it's just being passed through? Because I feel like it's probably saved as an embedding vector in the database that we compare to.
Yes.
So
So I think the order of operations here is probably look at the A-frame docs and hash each doc. If the hash matches the last one, ignore it. Right? If it's a new hash, like we'll use like MD5, right? We basically just get a checksum of the document.
I'm sure there's probably a GitHub action that can handle it, right? And you just watch
Yeah,
that section of the repo.
Sure. It's not our. I don't know if we can trigger it from their repo, but we can definitely trigger it on our own CIs whenever we deploy a change or whatever, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So if it's a new hash, right? So if I have MD5 hash it, then it's different, and they changed it. Add to the list, right? Then for every new file, what are we going to do? We're going to run a document splitter on it. Check if document already exists in database with same text, right? If it does, ignore it. If it doesn't, add it to the database. Now there's one problem there, or we'll say vectorize, and add it to the database. There's one problem, which is like what happens if I update something in a document.
yeah.
So I think that what we probably want to do, just to be more naive and keep this simple, if the document already exists, we're just going to say for every new file, delete any DB entries already associated with that file. We will revectorize. Vectors are so cheap that it's like it's kind of worth it.
I should mention that I have access to a pretty substantial amount of compute for like if we need it for a particular thing, so we can probably just run like a local Gina or something, and
that's cool. But I would also just totally use OpenAI.
Yeah.
Embeddings are so cheap. Run a document splitter, and then we'll just say run a document splitter, and then vectorize each fragment with a link back to the original source document. So that's basically it, right? Then we already have. So this is kind of the same. This is what I was calling lore, right? We could call it a lot of things. It could just be called documents. But we have so many like different concepts going on, like memory, facts, blah blah blah, that I think it's good just to say like, okay, if this was a video game, this would be like the game lore, right? Feel free to disagree, but generally we're kind of both doing this and then integrating that with Agent's concept of lore. So if we go back to the to-dos, here I have like lore handling and kind of talked about like we need a way to split documents and upload lore. We want to be able to search that in the context. We want to kind of add all of this to our apps and stuff. And that's actually reflected also in our other repo here. where we have these issues, and we say automatically vectorize A-frame documentation and implement lore. And when I say lore, what I mean is like, how do we actually read the A-frame documentation back into the bot? And that's kind of like the front end side of it. And so that would just be like the lore manager, which is another thing that I should probably prioritize this. Okay, writing some notes.
And so back from my understanding, just on to those, that kind of the flow that you wrote out back in that other page. So say we have the database spun up and we want to test the, the vectorization, right? At what point, I guess, is it grabbing the A-frame docs? Is that something you like give it to, we just give the database and here's a doc, do it? Or is that like a spot that it's going to be added to like the pipeline when it sees something's been added, which obviously can't be added to their GitHub Actions pipeline because it's their stuff. But how would we do that like on our side?
Good question. I mean, it would be easy to set up in a GitHub action, obviously, but then it's not going to update when their stuff updates. Right. So we could be like, well, here's the bot, plug it in, here's the CI pipeline for it, plug it into your thing, and now it'll, every time you update the docs, you get an updated bot. That could be a thing we could do. Because it wouldn't, that would be the easiest.
Yeah, I'm thinking more so like POC wise, like would it make sense if we just like have a local folder of just files and if we want to update it, we use that as test, or are we writing? Okay. And then that way, like if they want to do something on their side, they can use that same sort of format.
Yeah. Yeah, what I would do is probably like, let's say you just have some script, right? And it clones down their thing and goes to the docs folder and then just starts parsing everything in that directory. And then we just be like, oh, whatever, I don't have to clone it every time. That's annoying. So I'm just going to make a script that just does the parsing, and then I'll wrap it in that other script, and then I'll put that in my CI pipeline. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool.
And I'm sure as we kind of mess around, we'll probably hit you up. But I think we kind of have a rough idea probably of how it's supposed to be set up then.
I think those are the two like things to get kind of going with, are like the Supabase stuff, and also it's pertinent to local setup, and then the vectorization.
And so when we do that, if we do kind of get the documentation going as we're working this out, do you want us to push that to the main README of the A-frame bot, or keep that somewhere shared, or where do you kind of want that to exist?
I think pushing it to A-frame bot's good, but if you guys want to make a shared thing, we just need to come up with a name.
I'm fine pushing to the A-frame bot. I don't care as long as that's like an okay spot. I just didn't want to start pushing to your repo unless
do. And if you give me your GitHub IDs, I will add you guys as.
Yeah, we can send that over.
Yeah, one of these days, or like my part of the master plan is to set up a mono repo for like projects that are happening in this server, and then make that generally publicly available.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's quite an undertaking, but NX particularly, the benefit of it is it'll give you a task graph and then a source graph, and then your agents can reference those graphs.
So we have CodeJourney is the app project, right? I have it here. That's private, but we're gonna open source it. Just trying to. I don't know why I haven't yet. But I use Lerna, which NX basically acquired Lerna, and so Lerna and NX run underneath here, and this is a mono repo package. And this actually had the Beacon stuff in it. This is the CodeJourney agent, but I just felt like I wanted that to be something that people could use and own a little bit more aside from all of this bulk. And I feel like sometimes mono repos can be kind of unappealing. It's like a lot going on there. And you don't necessarily know to look when there's like 10 packages and stuff. So
hopefully the idea would be to have both a single repo for an individual project and then a mono repo that it connects back to that can be used as kind of like a staging area. But it's setup work too.
So
we both sent you our IDs just so you know.
Awesome. I will add you guys in a second.
Yeah, you're good.
And then we can say like these are the kind of I would say this one implements basically thinking about like just jumping into RAG and like let's just try to make a RAG thing. And you know, we're all doing this together. I'm super down to support, but I also want to give you guys space to like do some of the fun stuff and you know, get deep into this.
No, yeah, I think it probably shouldn't be too bad. Obviously, getting all the docs kind of set up, getting that set up for the Supabase instance, we'll probably just make it, you know, so anyone can kind of get that set up, and then we'll kind of dive into the RAG, and then, you know, once we hit a couple roadblocks, we'll bounce some ideas off each other.
I'm gonna show you guys one last thing you're gonna need, which is if you haven't, you're gonna need to go make an OpenAI account. And this is not a ChatGPT account. This is an OpenAI account on platform.openai.com. And this is where you get your OpenAI API key. There's also a lot of really useful information here about all of the different models that they do. There's vision, there's image generation, all that, as well as a lot of information on the different embeddings models. They just released 2 new models, embedding 3 small and large, and they kind of have like very different cost and quality kind of ratios. So that's good to kind of look up. But the main thing I do is go over here to the API keys and add a new API key. If you want an API key or you want me to shoulder the costs, I'm happy to. I can create a key and send it to you. Then also there's a playground here, and this is like a great place to play with prompts. And a lot of times when I'm developing prompts, I'll come here and I'll type all my stuff in and do the whole thing. And kind of, you know, you can do like the sort of chat system user prompt or like the old school stuff. So yeah, I think we covered all the things.
Cool.
Yeah, if there's I don't know, like if there's like, oh, it would be good if we had a channel or a forum or whatever for this, just let me know and I can make that happen in Discord or whatever.
Yeah, I'm trying to balance all of these like forces of you know, where do we go? Like I do have a server and we have about 150 people in there, 130 something. We could you know, say, okay, cool, we have that, we're doing it. If you have something here that makes sense, then I'm super down, especially to like build in the open. We'll just like figure that out. I think we can be kind of amorphous and just sort of be organic about it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm open to whatever. Mostly just want to get the work done, so we'll figure that stuff out. As far as like, I'm just gonna kind of start cranking on this stuff. I'm probably gonna take a little bit of like a 15-minute break, and then I'm gonna do screen sharing today and tomorrow, the next day, and the day after that, doing things, especially on the agent stuff, to make sure that it's well supported. So if you guys have like any questions, or you even just want to hang out and we just code, like freaking great. I'm gonna be doing this.
Yeah,
All
that
right.
sounds good. I know Austin and I, we usually always hop in calls and kind of just pair program together, so we'll see what happens.
The sit in Discord and listen to music and write code is definitely a good pastime, you know.
Yep. Sweet. All right,
Cool.
I'm gonna get into doing some code. Let me know if you guys have any questions or you know or anything.